The grand ballroom of the Atlanta Ritz-Carlton sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the flash of expensive jewelry. White-gloved waiters moved through the crowd with trays of champagne. A banner hung over the entrance. Whitestone University, class of 2015, 10-year reunion. Caleb Rivers stood alone near the bar, tugging at his navy blue suit jacket. It was the nicest one he owned, but next to the designer outfits around him, he felt underdressed. 10 years hadn't changed that feeling of being different from his classmates. "Caleb Rivers! Man, I haven't seen you since graduation." A hand slapped Caleb's back. He turned to see Tyler Whitman, now sporting an expensive haircut and a watch that probably cost more than Caleb's car. "Hey Tyler, good to see you," Caleb said, forcing a smile. "So what are you up to these days? Still with that, what was her name? The cleaning girl?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "Her name is Zariah. And yes, we're still together." Tyler's eyebrows shot up. "Wow, didn't expect that to last. I'm running my father's investment firm now. Just bought a vacation home in the Hamptons." He pulled out his phone. "Want to see?" Before Caleb could answer, a woman in a red designer dress joined them. Caleb recognized Brittany Jones, former head cheerleader, and now, based on the giant ring on her finger, Mrs. Somebody Important. "Caleb, you came," she air-kissed near his cheek. "And where's your friend? The one who used to clean the dorms?" Caleb took a deep breath. "Zariah will be here soon. She had a speaking event that ran late." "Speaking event?" Brittany laughed. "What does she talk about? The best way to fold towels?" Tyler snickered. Caleb felt his face grow hot. "Actually, Zariah is a well-known spoken-word poet now. She performs all over the country." "How interesting," Brittany said, not bothering to hide her disbelief. "I suppose everyone needs a hobby." Across the room, Caleb spotted his old roommate, Marcus Washington. Marcus was one of the few black students in their graduating class and one of the few people who had been kind to Zariah back then. Excusing himself from Tyler and Brittany, Caleb made his way over. "Caleb!" Marcus greeted him with a genuine hug. "Man, it's good to see you." "You too," Caleb said, relieved to see a friendly face. "How's the medical practice?" "Busy. Just opened our second pediatric clinic." Marcus looked around. "Where's Zariah? I've been following her career. That woman is amazing." For the first time that night, Caleb smiled for real. "She'll be here soon. She had an event at Emory University tonight. I saw her perform in Chicago last year. The whole audience was in tears." Marcus shook his head in admiration. "You got lucky, man." Caleb nodded. "I know. But did he really know? Lately, things had been strained between them. Zariah traveled so much for her performances. When she was home, she was often tired or working on new material. Meanwhile, Caleb's teaching job at the local high school kept him grounded in Atlanta. He was proud of her success, but sometimes he felt left behind. "Rivers actually showed up," a voice said loudly from nearby. "And I heard he's still with the Maid." Caleb turned to see Richard Pembroke, former fraternity president and current finance bro, talking to a group of alumni. "Her maid in pearls is still a maid," laughed Jessica Winters, now sporting a nose job and blonde highlights. "I mean, you can take the girl out of the projects, but—" "You want me to say something?" Marcus asked quietly. Caleb shook his head. "No, it's fine." But it wasn't fine. It was the same garbage they'd been dealing with for 10 years, the same looks, the same whispers, the same jokes. When would it ever stop? Meanwhile, in the lobby of the Ritz-Carlton, Zariah Brooks checked her reflection in a mirror. The emerald silk dress she'd saved up for hugged her curves perfectly. Her braids were pulled into an elegant bun, adorned with a simple pearl clip that had belonged to her grandmother. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. Truth be told, she didn't want to be here. These people had made her feel small, had labeled her the maid because she'd worked cleaning the dorms to help pay for her own education. Even now, with all her success, the thought of facing them made her stomach clench. But Caleb wanted to come. Sweet, loyal Caleb, who had always stood by her. Caleb, who had chosen her over the approval of his wealthy classmates. Caleb, who lately seemed more distant than ever. Taking a deep breath, Zariah headed toward the ballroom. As she approached the entrance, she heard the familiar buzz of conversation, laughter and clinking glasses. Then she stepped through the doorway. The first person to notice her was Brittany, whose eyes widened in surprise. Then Jessica, who stopped mid-sentence. One by one, heads turned. Conversations paused. The room grew quieter. Zariah stood tall, scanning the crowd for Caleb. When she spotted him across the room, their eyes met. For a moment, it was like the old days, just the two of them against the world. Then Richard's voice broke the silence. Well, well, look who cleaned up nice. Some people laughed. Others looked uncomfortable. Zariah ignored them all and made her way toward Caleb, her head held high. You made it, Caleb said, taking her hand. Sorry I'm late. The Q&A session went long. She kissed his cheek. Hi, Marcus. Marcus hugged her. The woman of the hour. I was just telling Caleb how amazing your Chicago performance was. You were there, you should have come backstage to say hello. As they chatted, Caleb noticed people staring. But this time, it wasn't with mockery. There was something else in their looks. Curiosity, maybe even respect. Zariah had always been beautiful, but tonight she radiated confidence that couldn't be ignored. Let's get you a drink, Caleb said, leading her toward the bar. Across the room, the reunion committee chair, Melissa Chen, was checking her program. We have a problem, she told her assistant. Our alumni speaker cancelled at the last minute. Food service starts in 30 minutes, and we have nothing planned for entertainment. The assistant scrolled through her phone. What about the DJ? Not until after dinner. We need something to keep everyone engaged while they eat. Just then, Melissa spotted Zariah. Wait, isn't that Zariah Brooks, the poet? The one dating Caleb Rivers? I think so. Melissa's eyes lit up. She's perfect. Her videos get millions of views online, and she's an alum. Well, sort of. She was around campus enough, but she didn't graduate from Whitestone. Details. Melissa waved dismissively. Go ask her if she'll do a short performance. Tell her we'll donate to her favorite charity or something. At the bar, Zariah sipped a glass of white wine while Caleb caught her up on who was who. That's Tyler over there. He runs his dad's company now. And the woman in the blue dress is Amanda. She's a corporate lawyer in New York. The guy with the beard is... Zariah nodded, but she wasn't really listening. She was watching Caleb. There was tension in his shoulders, a tightness around his eyes. He was putting on a good face, but she could tell he was uncomfortable. Hey, she said softly, touching his arm. Are you okay? Before he could answer, a young woman approached them. Excuse me, Ms. Brooks. I'm with the reunion committee. We had a last-minute cancellation for our dinner entertainment, and we were wondering if you might be willing to perform a short piece. Zariah blinked in surprise. Perform? Here. Just a short spoken word piece. We've all seen your videos online. You're amazing. It would be such an honor. Caleb stiffened beside her. She's not here to entertain everyone. She's a guest. The assistant looked flustered. Oh, I didn't mean... We would be happy to make a donation to your foundation, of course. Zariah's foundation supported arts education in underserved schools, a cause close to her. She looked at Caleb, then back at the assistant. I'll do it. But I choose the piece. Of course. Thank you so much. We'll call you up right after the salad course. As the assistant hurried away, Caleb turned to Zariah. You don't have to do this. I know, but why not? It's a good opportunity for the foundation. These people, they don't deserve to hear you perform. After how they treated you, how they still treat you. Zariah studied his face. Is that what's bothering you, or is it something else? Before Caleb could answer, the dinner bell rang. A voice over the loudspeaker asked everyone to take their seats. They were placed at a table with Marcus and his wife, along with several other alumni Caleb had been friendly with in college. As they ate their salads, Zariah felt eyes on her from around the room, some curious, some still judgmental. So, Zariah, said one woman whose name she couldn't remember, Caleb tells us you're some kind of poet now. Spoken word artist, Caleb corrected. I write and perform poetry, Zariah explained. I also run a non-profit that brings arts programs to schools in low-income areas. How nice, the woman said with a tight smile. My husband and I donate to the symphony. The arts are so important, aren't they? Zariah nodded, used to these kinds of conversations. But when she glanced at Caleb, she saw something in his expression that bothered her. Was it embarrassment? Frustration? She couldn't tell any more. After the salads were cleared away, Melissa Chen approached the microphone at the front of the room. Good evening, Whitestone alumni and guests. We have a special treat for you tonight. Many of you may know her from her viral videos or her recent appearance on National Public Radio. We're honored to have spoken word artist Zariah Brooks perform for us during dinner. Although not technically an alumna, she's practically part of the Whitestone family. There was polite applause as Zariah made her way to the front of the room. Standing at the microphone, she looked out at the sea of faces, many of whom had once looked through her as if she were invisible, or worse, had seen her only as the Maid. She took a deep breath and began. This piece is called Invisible Ink. Her voice started soft, but grew stronger with each word. She spoke about being written in invisible ink, present but unseen, about how some people could look right through you because of where you came from or the color of your skin, about the pain of being labeled before being known. As she performed, the clinking of silverware stopped. Conversations died. All eyes were on her. She didn't look at Caleb. She couldn't, because this piece wasn't the one she had planned to perform. This one came from a place of anger, of hurt, from the part of her that was tired of proving herself over and over. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then, slowly, the applause began. It grew louder, with a few people even standing. Zariah nodded her thanks and returned to her seat. Caleb was staring at her, his expression unreadable. "That was—" he started, then stopped. "Not what you expected?" she asked quietly. "Powerful," he said. But, before he could finish, people began approaching their table. Some to compliment Zariah on her performance, others to reminisce with Caleb about college days. The moment to talk was lost in the buzz of dinner conversation. As the main course was served, Zariah noticed Caleb growing quieter. When Tyler came by and made a joke about moving up in the world from cleaning to poetry, Caleb didn't defend her. He just gave a tight smile and changed the subject. Zariah felt a familiar ache in her chest. How many times had they been here before? How many times had she watched Caleb torn between standing up for her and fitting in with his peers? By the time dessert arrived, the tension between them was palpable. Zariah excused herself to use the restroom, needing a moment alone. In the elegant marble bathroom, she stared at her reflection. The confident woman who had walked in like thunder was starting to fade, replaced by the same insecure girl who had once been mistaken for the maid. "Quite a performance," a voice said. Zariah turned to see Jessica Winters touching up her lipstick at the next sink. "Thank you," Zariah replied cautiously. "You know, I never understood what Caleb saw in you back then." Jessica capped her lipstick. "But I guess now that you're famous, it makes more sense." Zariah frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Jessica shrugged. "Just that people like Caleb, they need to feel special. Back in college, he got to be the hero dating the poor cleaning girl. Now he gets to be the boyfriend of the celebrity poet. Either way, he stands out." The words hit Zariah like a slap. Not because they were cruel, but because a small part of her feared they might be true. Had Caleb ever really seen her? Or just the role she played in his life? When she returned to the table, the DJ was setting up, and people were starting to move toward the dance floor. Caleb was deep in conversation with Amanda, the corporate lawyer from New York. "There you are," he said when he noticed Zariah. "Amanda was just telling me about her firm. They have an opening in their educational division. It could be a great opportunity." Amanda smiled. "We're always looking for talented people, and it would be in Atlanta, so you wouldn't have to relocate." Zariah looked between them, realization dawning. "You're talking about a job for Caleb?" Amanda nodded. "The hours are better than teaching, and the pay is, well, let's just say it's competitive. I told her I'm happy at the high school," Caleb said quickly. "But it doesn't hurt to network, right?" Something in his tone made Zariah's heart sink. Was he looking for a way out? A way to prove himself? As the music started and couples moved to the dance floor, the distance between them felt wider than ever. 10 years together, and suddenly Zariah wasn't sure they knew each other at all. "Want to dance?" Caleb asked, offering his hand. Zariah took it, letting him lead her to the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, surrounded by their past, both wondered about their future. The night was far from over, and the storm was just beginning. As Caleb held Zariah close on the dance floor, memories flooded back. 10 years ago, they had danced like this at his senior formal. He had been so proud to have her on his arm, so certain of their future together. Now, with her body tense against his, he wondered where that certainty had gone. "Remember our first dance?" he asked, trying to recapture some of that old magic. Zariah nodded. "You wore that blue tie I gave you, and you wore that black dress you borrowed from your roommate. People stared at us then too," she said quietly. Caleb sighed. Some things never change, but some things did change. Back then, he had been the strong one, the one with all the advantages. Now Zariah's star was rising while he remained a high school history teacher. He was proud of her success, but sometimes he wondered what he had to offer her anymore. From across the room, Richard Pembroke watched them with narrowed eyes. "Can you believe Rivers is still with that girl?" he said to Tyler, "after all these years?" Tyler shrugged. "Maybe he couldn't do any better. Or maybe she wouldn't let him go," Richard smirked. "You know how these girls from the hood are. They find a meal ticket and hang on tight." Tyler laughed, but his eyes lingered on Zariah. "She did clean up nice, though. That dress—" "Down, boy," Richard said. "Remember what happened last time you tried to talk to her?" 10 years ago, at a fraternity party, Tyler had cornered Zariah in the kitchen. He'd been drunk and handsy. Caleb had walked in just as Tyler tried to kiss her. The resulting fight had nearly gotten Caleb expelled. It was only Marcus's testimony that saved him. "Ancient history," Tyler said, downing his champagne. "Besides, I'm a different man now." "Prove it," Richard challenged. "Go ask her to dance." On the dance floor, Zariah pulled back slightly from Caleb. "I need some air," she said. "It's hot in here." Caleb nodded, relieved for the break. "Want me to come with you?" "No, I'll just step out to the terrace for a minute. You should catch up with your friends." As Zariah made her way through the crowd, she felt eyes following her. The performance had changed something. People were looking at her differently now, with curiosity, even respect, but the one person whose opinion mattered most still seemed distant. The terrace overlooked the hotel's manicured gardens. String lights twinkled in the trees, and the Atlanta skyline glittered in the distance. Zariah took a deep breath of the night air. "Quite a view, isn't it?" She turned to see Marcus joining her at the railing. "Much better than in there," she said with a small smile. "Your performance was incredible. You had Jessica Winters in tears, and that woman cries for nothing except cancelled spa appointments." Zariah laughed. "Thanks. I wasn't sure how it would be received." "Are you kidding? You're a star now, Zariah. Everyone can see it." Marcus paused. "Everyone except maybe Caleb." Zariah's smile faded. "What do you mean?" Marcus sighed. "I've known Caleb since freshman year. He's a good man, one of the best, but he's always needed to be the hero of his own story. And I don't need a hero anymore," Zariah said softly, realization dawning. "Do any of us? Look at you. National tours, a foundation, making real change in the world. You've built something amazing." Marcus leaned against the railing. "And Caleb's still teaching the same history class at Westlake High." "There's nothing wrong with being a teacher," Zariah said defensively. "Of course not. But you know Caleb. His family expected him to be a lawyer or doctor, something prestigious. When he chose teaching, it was his way of rebelling, of proving he could make his own choices." "Like choosing me," Zariah said, the realization hitting her hard. Marcus nodded. "Exactly like choosing you. It was the ultimate rebellion against his parents, against people like Richard and Tyler, and for a long time that was enough for him. But not anymore? I don't know. That's something you two need to figure out." Inside the ballroom, Caleb found himself cornered by his former classmates. "So, teaching high school history," Richard said, a hint of mockery in his voice. "Still changing the world one bored teenager at a time?" Caleb forced a smile. "Someone has to do it." "But does it have to be you?" Tyler asked. "I mean, with your grades, you could have gone to law school, been making bank by now." "Not everyone measures success by their bank account," Caleb replied. "No, some measure it by who they're sleeping with," Richard said with a smirk. "And I have to admit, your stock just went up. Zariah's quite the celebrity now, isn't she?" Caleb felt his temper rising. "Watch it, Pembroke." "Hey, I'm paying her a compliment. She's come a long way from cleaning dorm rooms. Must be nice having a famous girlfriend." Before Caleb could respond, Amanda, the corporate lawyer, joined them. "Caleb, I was serious about that job opening. With your background in education and her connections in the non-profit world, you'd be perfect for our community outreach division. I already told you, I'm happy at Westlake," Caleb said, though even to his own ears the words lacked conviction. "Are you, though?" Amanda pressed. "You were the golden boy, Caleb. Valedictorian, football captain. Everyone expected great things from you. And what? Being a teacher isn't great. It's noble," Amanda conceded. "But is it enough? Especially now that Zariah's career is taking off? Don't you want to match her success?" The question hit a nerve. It was the same one that had been nagging at him for months. As Zariah's profile rose, as her speaking fees increased and her audience grew, Caleb had felt himself shrinking, not because he wasn't proud of her, but because he wasn't sure of his place in her new world. "Think about it," Amanda said, handing him her business card. "The starting salary alone would be double what you're making now." Out on the terrace, Zariah was about to head back inside when Tyler appeared. "There's the star of the evening," he said, his words slightly slurred from too much champagne. "That was some performance." "Thank you," Zariah said coolly, remembering all too well their last encounter years ago. "You know, I always thought you were beautiful. Even back in college when you were just the cleaning girl." Zariah stiffened. "I was never just anything, Tyler." "No, you certainly weren't," he said, stepping closer. "And you definitely aren't now. The way you command a room, it's sexy." "I'm going back inside," Zariah said, trying to move past him. Tyler blocked her path. "One dance, for old time's sake." We don't have old times, Tyler. Now please move. Come on. Don't be like that. I'm trying to apologize for how I acted back then. Apology accepted. Now move. But Tyler didn't move. Instead, he reached out and touched her arm. You know, Caleb doesn't deserve you. He never did. A woman like you needs a man who can match your fire. Take your hand off me, Zariah said, her voice low but fierce. Just then, the terrace door opened and Melissa Chen stepped out. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Zariah, people are asking if you'd do another piece before the DJ starts his set. Grateful for the interruption, Zariah stepped away from Tyler. I'd be happy to, she said, even though performing again was the last thing she wanted to do, anything to get away from Tyler and his wandering hands. Back inside, she searched the crowd for Caleb but couldn't find him. The DJ handed her the microphone, and once again the room quieted. This piece is called The Boy Who Never Left Me Behind, she said, making a split-second decision to change her planned performance. As she began to speak, her voice was softer than before. She told a story about a young woman working her way through college, cleaning dorm rooms while dreaming of a better life. About a boy who saw beyond her uniform to the person beneath, who held her hand when others stared, who believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. From the back of the room, Caleb watched, transfixed. This was their story, the good parts, the parts worth remembering. For the first time that night, he felt the knot in his chest begin to loosen. But as Zariah continued, her poem took a turn. She spoke of distance growing between them, of a love tested by success and change, of two people who had forgotten how to see each other clearly. The boy who never left me behind, she concluded, her voice barely above a whisper, now stands at a crossroads, wondering which way to turn, and the girl who once needed saving has learned to save herself. The silence that followed was profound. Then, like a wave, applause swept through the room. People were standing, some wiping away tears. Even Richard Pembroke looked affected. Zariah handed the microphone back to the DJ and made her way through the crowd. People reached out to touch her arm to offer praise, but she barely registered them. She was looking for Caleb. She found him by the exit, his face unreadable. That was about us, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Are we really at a crossroads? Zariah took a deep breath. Aren't we? Caleb, when was the last time we really talked? Not about schedules or bills or whose turn it is to do the dishes, but really talked like we used to? Caleb ran a hand through his hair. I don't know, things have been busy. They've been busy for years, that's not the real problem. Before Caleb could respond, Jessica approached them. Zariah, that was simply amazing. I had no idea you were so talented. Thank you, Jessica, Zariah said, trying to hide her frustration at the interruption. And to think we all thought you were just... Jessica caught herself. Well, we didn't really know you back then, did we? No, Zariah agreed. You didn't. Well, we should get coffee sometime. I'd love to hear more about your foundation. My husband's company does a lot of charitable giving. As Jessica walked away, Caleb shook his head. Amazing how success changes people's perception, isn't it? Success didn't change me, Caleb, Zariah said quietly, but I'm starting to think it changed how you see me. The hurt in her voice was unmistakable. Caleb reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I need some space, she said. I'm going up to the room. Zariah, wait. But she was already walking away, her emerald dress shimmering under the chandeliers. Caleb watched her go, feeling as if he was losing something precious, but not knowing how to hold on to it. Trouble in paradise? Richard's voice came from behind him. Caleb turned, in no mood for Richard's taunts. Not now, Pembroke. Hey, I get it. Dating a celebrity can't be easy, especially when you're just a high school teacher. Something in Caleb snapped. And what are you, Richard? Still living off your father's money? Still defining yourself by who you can look down on? Richard's smug expression faltered. Watch it, Rivers. No, you watch it. For 10 years, you and your friends have been making comments about Zariah. 10 years of snide remarks and backhanded compliments. And for what? Because she came from a different neighborhood? Because she had to work while you were partying on Daddy's dime? A small crowd had gathered around them. Marcus stepped forward, placing a hand on Caleb's shoulder. Easy, man, he's not worth it. You're right, Caleb said, backing down. He's not. None of this is. He turned and headed for the exit, ignoring the stares and whispers. For the first time in years, he didn't care what any of them thought. The only opinion that mattered was Zariah's, and right now, he was afraid he'd lost her respect completely. In their hotel room, Zariah stood at the window, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. The city lights blurred through her tears. How had they gotten here? How had 10 years of love led to this moment of disconnection? She thought back to when they first met. She had been assigned to clean his dorm floor, and he had always been kind, saying hello, asking about her day. Unlike the other students who looked through her, Caleb had seen her. One day, he'd found her reading a textbook during her break. It was for a class she was taking at the community college, Introduction to Literature. Dickens, he'd said, noticing the book. Heavy reading for a lunch break. I have a paper due, she'd explained, waiting for the mockery she usually received when people learned she was taking classes. But Caleb had surprised her. Want to bounce some ideas off me? I took that class last year. That simple offer had been the beginning. Coffee to discuss her paper had led to dinner. Dinner had led to more conversations, more time together. By the time Caleb's graduation approached, they were inseparable, despite the raised eyebrows and whispered comments. Now, a decade later, she wondered if those whispers had finally gotten to him, if the constant need to defend their relationship had worn him down. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Zariah, it's me." She wiped her eyes before opening the door. Caleb stood in the hallway, his tie loosened, his expression troubled. "Can we talk?" he asked. Zariah stepped back, letting him in. "Isn't that what we've been trying to do all night?" Caleb sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm sorry about downstairs, about everything." "What exactly are you sorry for, Caleb? For not defending me when Tyler and Richard made their comments? Or for something bigger?" "Both, I guess." He looked up at her. "I just had it out with Richard, by the way. Told him exactly what I think of him and his elitist garbage." "Too little, too late," Zariah said, though there was no anger in her voice, only sadness. "The problem isn't them, Caleb. It's us." "What do you mean?" "When we met, you were the golden boy with the bright future. I was the cleaning girl with big dreams. You believed in me when no one else did. You helped me see beyond my circumstances. And I still believe in you," Caleb insisted. "Look at everything you've accomplished." "That's just it. I have accomplished things I never thought possible, but the more successful I become, the more you pull away." "That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you came to one of my performances? When was the last time you asked about my writing?" Caleb was silent, unable to remember. "I think," Zariah continued, "that you liked being my hero. You liked being the one who rescued me from obscurity. But now that I don't need rescuing anymore—" "That's not fair," Caleb protested. "I've always supported your career." "Supporting isn't the same as sharing." Zariah sat beside him on the bed. "I want to share my life with you, Caleb. All of it, the successes and the failures. But lately, it feels like you're just watching from the sidelines." "And what about you?" Caleb asked, his own hurt rising to the surface. "You're gone all the time. When you are home, you're working on new material or taking calls from your agent. Where do I fit in your busy life?" "That's not—" Zariah began, then stopped. Was he right? Had she been so focused on her career that she'd neglected their relationship? A heavy silence fell between them. Outside, the sounds of the city, car horns, distant music, filtered through the window. 10 years together, and suddenly they were strangers. "Amanda offered me a job tonight," Caleb said finally, "at her law firm. Community Outreach Division. Twice what I make teaching. Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. Part of me thinks I should. Maybe then I'd feel like I was keeping up with you." Zariah turned to him, shocked. "Is that what this is about? Keeping up with me?" "Not exactly, but—" Caleb struggled to find the words. "Zariah, you're amazing. You always have been, but now everyone else knows it too. You're speaking at universities, running a foundation, changing lives, and I'm still teaching the same history class at Westlake. And you're changing lives too, Caleb. Your students adore you. It's not the same." "It is to me," Zariah said fiercely. "I never asked you to be famous or rich. I just asked you to be you, the man who saw me when no one else did." Caleb looked at her, really looked at her for the first time all night. "I do see you, Zariah. Sometimes I think I see you too clearly. How brilliant you are, how talented, and I wonder what you're still doing with me." Zariah's eyes filled with tears again. "Is that really what you think? That I've outgrown you? Haven't you? Look at tonight. You walk in and the whole room stops. You perform and people cry. Meanwhile, I'm still the same guy I was 10 years ago. And that's who I fell in love with," Zariah said, taking his hand. "That guy, the one who doesn't need to impress anyone, the one who chooses what's right over what's easy." Caleb squeezed her hand, but doubt still clouded his eyes. "I'm not sure that's enough anymore." "For who? For me or for you?" Before he could answer, Caleb's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Everything okay? People are asking where you went." We should get back to the reunion, Caleb said, showing her the message. Zariah shook her head. I don't want to go back down there, not until we figure this out. Figure what out? Whether we still have a future together? The words came out harsher than Caleb intended. Zariah flinched. Is that really a question for you? Caleb stood up and walked to the window. I don't know, Zariah. I honestly don't know anymore. Everything's changing so fast. You're changing, and I'm standing still. Then move with me, Zariah said, joining him at the window. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to grow with me, to see us as partners, not as hero and damsel. And if I can't? If I'm always going to be the high school teacher dating the famous poet? Then we have a problem, Zariah said softly, because I need a partner, Caleb, not someone who resents my success or feels diminished by it. The truth of her words hit him hard. Had he been resenting her success? Had his pride been wounded by her rising star? A knock at the door interrupted them again. This time it was Marcus. Sorry to bother you guys, but I wanted to make sure everything was okay. That was quite an exit you made, Caleb. We're fine, Caleb said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Just working some things out. Marcus looked between them, clearly sensing the tension. Well, if you're coming back down, you might want to hurry. They're about to announce the class superlatives, and rumor has it you two are up for most changed since graduation. How fitting, Zariah said with a bitter laugh. After Marcus left, Caleb turned to Zariah. We should go back down, just for a little while. Then we can come back up and finish this conversation. Zariah hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But Caleb? Yeah. This isn't a conversation we can leave unfinished. Too much depends on it. As they headed back to the elevator, both felt the weight of what was at stake. 10 years of love, of growth, of challenges overcome. And now, perhaps their greatest challenge yet, finding a way to move forward together when the ground beneath them had shifted so dramatically. The elevator doors closed, taking them back down to the ballroom where their past and present collided, and where their future hung in the balance. When Caleb and Zariah returned to the ballroom, the atmosphere had shifted. The formal dinner was over, and the DJ had turned up the music. People were dancing, drinking, and laughing, reliving their college days without the pressure of exams and deadlines. Melissa Chen spotted them immediately and rushed over. There you are. We're about to announce the class superlatives. Everyone voted earlier, and we've tallied the results. Great, Caleb said without enthusiasm. Marcus appeared at their side with 2 glasses of champagne. Thought you might need these, he said, handing them each a glass. Thanks, Zariah said, taking a long sip. The bubbles did little to ease the tightness in her chest. Across the room, Richard Pembroke was watching them, his expression sour after his confrontation with Caleb. Beside him, Tyler was even more drunk than before, his tie askew and his eyes unfocused. I still say she's too good for him, Tyler slurred. What's she doing with a high school teacher when she could have a real man? Drop it, Tyler, Richard warned. Rivers already made a scene once tonight. But Tyler wasn't listening. He drained his glass and set it down hard on a nearby table. I'm going to talk to her, show her what she's missing. Bad idea, Richard said, but Tyler was already pushing his way through the crowd. At the front of the room, Melissa tapped on the microphone. Attention, Whitestone class of 2015. It's time for our reunion superlatives. The crowd gathered around, drinks in hand, ready for some nostalgic fun. Caleb and Zariah stood at the back, both feeling out of place amid the forced cheer. First up, most successful. No surprise here, it's Amanda Chen, partner at Morrison Klein Law. Amanda waved from near the stage, basking in the applause. Best looking after 10 years. This was close, but the winner is Jessica Winters. Jessica feigned surprise, touching her surgically enhanced features as she made her way to the front. Most changed since graduation. And this was unanimous, folks. Zariah Brooks. A spotlight found Zariah in the crowd. People turned to look at her, applauding with genuine appreciation. Caleb felt a surge of pride despite their earlier argument. Zariah hesitated, then made her way to the front of the room. Thank you, she said into the microphone. Though technically, I never graduated from Whitestone. But you were a fixture on campus, Melissa said with a laugh. And look at you now. National tours, your foundation, that incredible performance tonight. You've certainly come a long way from, she caught herself, from those early days. Zariah nodded, choosing to be gracious. We've all come a long way in 10 years. Some journeys are just more visible than others. As she stepped away from the microphone, Tyler intercepted her, swaying slightly. That was beautiful what you said, he slurred. You're beautiful. Thank you, Tyler. Excuse me, Zariah tried to move past him. Tyler blocked her path. One dance, that's all I'm asking. No thank you, Zariah said firmly. I'm going back to Caleb. Caleb, Tyler scoffed. What's he ever done except ride your coattails? You need a man who can match your success. Zariah's eyes flashed with anger. Caleb has done more with his life than you could ever understand. Now move. But Tyler grabbed her arm. Just one dance, for old time's sake. Let go of me, Zariah said, loud enough that people nearby turned to look. From across the room, Caleb saw what was happening and started making his way through the crowd. Marcus was right behind him. Hey, Caleb called out. She said to let go, Tyler. Tyler turned, still gripping Zariah's arm. Stay out of this, Rivers. This is between me and your girlfriend. There is nothing between us, Zariah said, wrenching her arm free. There never was, and there never will be. Come on. We all know why he's with you, Tyler sneered. He gets to play the hero, rescuing the poor cleaning girl. Makes him feel big. The words hit too close to their earlier argument. Zariah glanced at Caleb, pain in her eyes. That's enough, Marcus said, stepping between Tyler and Zariah. You're drunk, Tyler. Go sleep it off. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, Tyler insisted. Rivers has always had a savior complex. First with her, now with those kids he teaches. Caleb lunged forward, but Marcus held him back. Oh, he's not worth it, man. Listen to your friend, Tyler taunted. Wouldn't want to mess up that pretty face of yours. It's all you've got going for you, right? That and your famous girlfriend. Something snapped in Caleb, not just because of Tyler's insults, but because of the grain of truth in them. Hadn't he been thinking the same thing himself, that he wasn't enough for Zariah anymore? Breaking free from Marcus's grip, Caleb stepped right up to Tyler. You want to know why I'm with Zariah? It's not because I rescued her, it's because she rescued me. Tyler laughed. From what? Your bright future. From becoming someone like you, Caleb said. Someone who measures worth by bank accounts and job titles. Someone who thinks success means stepping on others to get ahead. The room had gone quiet. Everyone was watching the confrontation. Zariah taught me what real success looks like, Caleb continued, his voice strong and clear. It's not about money or status. It's about making a difference, about staying true to yourself even when the world tries to change you. He turned to Zariah, whose eyes were bright with unshed tears. I forgot that somewhere along the way, he admitted. I got caught up in feeling left behind, in worrying that I wasn't good enough for you anymore. But that's my issue, not yours. Zariah stepped forward, taking his hand. Caleb, no, let me finish, he said gently. You never needed me to save you, Zariah. You saved yourself, you worked your way through school, you built your career. You created something beautiful and meaningful with your life. He took a deep breath. And if I've made you feel for 1 second like I resent your success, then I've failed as your partner. Because the truth is, I'm in awe of you. I always have been. The room was so quiet, you could hear the ice melting in people's drinks. Even Tyler seemed sobered by the emotional display. Well, Richard said, breaking the silence. Isn't this touching? Shut up, Richard, Jessica said, surprising everyone. For once in your life, just shut up. Richard blinked in surprise. Excuse me? You heard me, Jessica said, stepping forward. We've all had enough of your elitist garbage. Look around this room, half of us are divorced, in therapy, or both. We've got prestigious jobs and expensive cars, but are we happy? Are we making a difference like Zariah? Or helping shape young minds like Caleb? She turned to Zariah. I owe you an apology. We all do. The way we treated you back then, the things we said, it was cruel and inexcusable. Zariah was stunned. Of all the people she'd expected an apology from, Jessica Winters was last on the list. Thank you, she said simply. Speak for yourself, Richard muttered, but no one was listening to him anymore. Marcus clapped a hand on Tyler's shoulder. I think it's time for you to call it a night, buddy. Tyler looked from Caleb to Zariah, then nodded. Yeah, sorry about, you know. He allowed Marcus to lead him away. As the tension dissipated, the DJ started a slow song. Couples moved back to the dance floor, and conversations resumed. Caleb turned to Zariah. Can we try that dance again? She nodded, following him to the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, she leaned her head against his chest. Did you mean what you said? She asked quietly. Every word, Caleb replied. I got lost for a while, Zariah. Lost in my own insecurity. But I meant it when I said I'm in awe of you. I never wanted you to feel left behind. I know. That was on me, not you. He pulled back slightly to look at her. But I need to know. Am I enough for you? Just as I am? Zariah touched his face gently. You always have been. I didn't fall in love with you because of what you did for a living or how much money you made. I fell in love with your heart, with the way you see the world and the way you saw me. I still see you, Caleb whispered. Sometimes I get distracted by all the noise, but I never stopped seeing you. As they danced, the years seemed to fall away. They were back in his dorm room, sharing dreams over cheap pizza. Back on campus, holding hands despite the stares. Back at his graduation, facing an uncertain future together. I turned down the fellowship, Zariah said suddenly. Caleb pulled back, confused. What fellowship? The one in New York, the 6-month residency at Columbia that I applied for last year. I got it, but I turned it down. Zariah, why? That was your dream. She shook her head. It was a dream, not the dream. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd insist I take it, that you'd say we could make long-distance work. We could have, maybe, but I didn't want to. Not when things were already strained between us. She looked up at him. I was afraid if I left for 6 months, I might not have a home to come back to. The admission hung between them, a testament to how fragile their relationship had become without either of them fully realizing it. I would have waited for you, Caleb said. I will always wait for you. That's just it. I don't want you waiting. I want you beside me. Not behind me, not ahead of me. With me. Caleb nodded, understanding finally dawning. Partners. Exactly. As the song ended, Melissa approached them again. Sorry to interrupt, but Zariah, people are asking if you'd do one more piece before the night ends. Your performance earlier was so moving. Zariah looked at Caleb, who nodded encouragingly. One more, she agreed. Back at the microphone, Zariah looked out at the faces of people who had once dismissed her, people who had called her the Maid and questioned her place in their world. Now they were watching her with respect, even admiration. This piece is new, she said. I've never performed it before. It's called The Storm and the Shelter. As she began to speak, her voice was strong and clear. She told a story of two people weathering life's storms together, of a love that wasn't always easy but was always worth fighting for, of finding shelter in each other when the world raged around them. In your arms, I found shelter, she concluded, looking directly at Caleb. And in my heart, you found home. Through every storm, through every calm, we remain, each other's constant in a changing world. The applause was immediate and enthusiastic. People stood, cheering and wiping away tears. But Zariah only had eyes for Caleb, who was looking at her with so much love it made her breath catch. As she made her way back to him, people stopped her to express their admiration. Amanda, the corporate lawyer, handed her a business card. I'd love to discuss having you speak at our firm's diversity initiative, she said. Your voice is exactly what we need. Thank you, Zariah said, genuinely touched. I'd be happy to discuss it. Richard approached next, looking uncomfortable. That was impressive, he admitted grudgingly. You've certainly proven me wrong. Have I? Zariah asked coolly. Or have you just finally opened your eyes to what was always there? Richard had no answer for that. Finally reaching Caleb, Zariah took his hand. Can we get out of here? He nodded and they slipped away from the ballroom, leaving the reunion behind. In the elevator, Caleb pulled her close. I'm so proud of you, he said. Not just for tonight, but for everything. For who you are. I'm proud of us, Zariah replied, for finding our way back to each other. Back in their hotel room, they sat on the balcony, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. The night air was warm, carrying the scent of magnolias from the hotel gardens below. I've been thinking about what you said earlier, Caleb said, about me taking that job at Amanda's firm. And I'm not going to take it. He took her hand. Not because it isn't a good opportunity, but because it's not what I want. I love teaching. I love knowing I'm making a difference in my students' lives. I know you do, Zariah said, squeezing his hand. That's why I fell in love with you. Your passion for changing the world, one student at a time. But, Caleb continued, I have been thinking about going back to school, getting my PhD in education, maybe moving into curriculum development or educational policy eventually. Zariah's face lit up. Caleb, that's perfect for you. You think so? I know so. You've always had such innovative ideas about teaching history, about making it relevant and engaging for students. This would give you a platform to reach even more kids. Caleb smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. It would mean some changes. I'd have to cut back on teaching hours. We'd have less time together, at least for a while. We'll make it work, Zariah said confidently. That's what partners do. Speaking of which, Caleb said, I think you should call Columbia, see if that fellowship is still available. Caleb, I told you, I know what you told me, and I love you for putting us first. But you shouldn't have to choose between your relationship and your dreams. If the fellowship is gone, we'll find another opportunity. The point is, I support you. Completely. Zariah leaned against him, her heart full. We've been so stupid, haven't we? Both of us holding back, afraid to rock the boat. Not stupid, Caleb said. Just human, scared of losing what matters most. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights twinkle like stars. Your poems tonight, Caleb said finally. They were beautiful, especially the last one. I meant every word. I know. That's what made them so powerful. He turned to face her. You've always had that gift, for speaking truth even when it's hard, for making people feel seen. I learned that from you, Zariah said softly. You saw me when no one else did. Caleb shook his head. I just recognized what was already there. The strength, the talent, the heart. Everyone else was too blind to see it. And now? Now they can't look away, Caleb said with a smile. You walked in like thunder tonight, Zariah. You shook the whole room. Zariah laughed. That was the dress. Cost me a month's speaking fees. It wasn't the dress, Caleb said seriously. It was you, your confidence, your grace, the way you've grown into yourself over these 10 years. We've both grown, Zariah said. Sometimes together, sometimes apart, but always toward each other, I think. Caleb nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Their journey hadn't been straight or simple. There had been detours and rough patches, times when they'd lost sight of what mattered most. But somehow they'd found their way back. I have something for you, Caleb said, reaching into his pocket. I was going to wait until we got home, but now seems right. He pulled out a small velvet box. Zariah's breath caught. It's not what you think, he said quickly. Well, not exactly. Opening the box, he revealed a silver ring set with a small emerald. It's not an engagement ring. We did that part 5 years ago. It was true. They'd been engaged for 5 years but had never set a date. Always too busy, too focused on their careers, too uncertain about the future. It's a promise, Caleb continued. A new promise for this next chapter. No more holding back. No more letting insecurity or fear get between us. From now on, we face everything together, as equals. Tears filled Zariah's eyes as she took the ring. It was simple, but elegant, the emerald exactly matching her dress. How did you know? She asked, slipping it onto her right hand. Know what? That I'd wear emerald tonight. Caleb smiled. I didn't, but green has always been your color. It reminds me of that first spring after we met, when you wore that green scarf every day. I can't believe you remember that, Zariah said, touched by his recall of such a small detail. I remember everything about us, Zariah. The good and the bad. It's all part of our story. She leaned in and kissed him, a kiss that felt like coming home after a long journey. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. So what now? She asked. Now we set a date, Caleb said firmly. No more waiting. I want to be your husband, not just your fiancé. I'd like that, Zariah said, smiling through her tears. Very much. Down in the ballroom, the reunion continued. People danced and laughed, took pictures and exchanged business cards. They shared memories of their college days and made plans to keep in touch, promises that most would forget by morning. But up on the balcony, Caleb and Zariah were making promises of their own. Promises born of 10 years of love and growth, of challenges overcome and lessons learned. Promises they intended to keep. As the night deepened around them, they talked about everything, their fears and dreams, their regrets and hopes. They mapped out their future together, not as hero and damsel, but as partners, equals on a shared journey. And when the first light of dawn touched the Atlanta skyline, they were still talking, still planning, still falling in love with each other all over again. The storm had passed, leaving clarity in its wake. And in that clarity, they found their way forward, together. Sunlight streamed through the hotel curtains, waking Zariah from a deep sleep. She blinked, momentarily disoriented, before remembering where she was. The reunion, the confrontation, the reconciliation with Caleb. She turned to find him already awake, watching her with soft eyes. Morning, he said, brushing a stray braid from her face. Morning, she replied, her voice husky from sleep. What time is it? Almost 9. The farewell brunch starts at 10. Zariah groaned. Do we have to go? We don't have to do anything, Caleb said, pulling her close. We could skip it, check out early, and head home. The thought was tempting. After the emotional roller coaster of the previous night, the idea of facing everyone again was exhausting, but something in Zariah resisted. No, she said finally. Let's go. Let's finish what we started. Caleb nodded, understanding. Besides, I want to say goodbye to Marcus before he heads back to Chicago. They took their time getting ready, moving around the hotel room with a newfound ease. The tension that had been building between them for months was gone, replaced by a comfortable intimacy that felt both familiar and brand new. Zariah caught Caleb looking at her as she applied her lipstick. "What?" she asked, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "Nothing," he said with a smile. "Just remembering how lucky I am." The emerald ring glinted on her right hand as she finished her makeup, a promise of their future together, a commitment to face whatever came next as partners. When they arrived at the hotel restaurant for brunch, the atmosphere was relaxed and informal. People were dressed casually, many showing signs of the previous night's festivities, sunglasses hiding hangovers, voices lowered to avoid aggravating headaches. Marcus waved them over to a table by the window where he sat with his wife, Lisa. "There they are," he said as they approached. "The talk of the reunion." "Please tell me you're joking," Zariah said, taking a seat. "Afraid not," Lisa said with a sympathetic smile. "Your performance and that whole scene with Tyler are all anyone's talking about." "Great," Caleb muttered. "Hey, it's all good," Marcus assured them. "You should hear what Jessica's been saying about you, Zariah. She's practically your biggest fan now." As if on cue, Jessica appeared at their table, looking fresh despite the early hour. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, surprisingly tentative. Zariah and Caleb exchanged a glance before Caleb nodded. "Sure, have a seat." Jessica sat down, fidgeting with her napkin. "I wanted to apologize again for, well, everything. The way I treated you in college, Zariah. The things I said. It was cruel, and I'm truly sorry." "What brought on this change of heart?" Zariah asked, not unkindly. Jessica sighed. "Life, I guess. The last 10 years haven't been as perfect as I make them seem. 2 failed marriages, a stint in rehab that the reunion committee doesn't know about." She gave a humorless laugh. "Turns out having the right connections and the right address doesn't guarantee happiness." "I'm sorry to hear that," Zariah said sincerely. "Don't be, it was a wake-up call. And watching you last night, seeing what you've built with your life, with your relationship, it made me realize what really matters." From across the restaurant, they could see Tyler nursing a coffee, his face pale and drawn. Richard was nowhere to be seen. "How's Tyler this morning?" Caleb asked Marcus. "Embarrassed. Hungover. Sorry, from what I can tell. He asked me to tell you both he apologizes for his behavior." "Tell him apology accepted," Zariah said, surprising everyone at the table. "Life's too short to hold grudges." As they ate, the conversation flowed easily. Jessica asked about Zariah's foundation, genuinely interested in her work with underprivileged youth. Marcus and Lisa shared stories about their children. Caleb talked about his plans to pursue a PhD in education. It was strange, Zariah thought, how quickly things could change. 10 years ago, she had been an outsider in this world. Now she was sitting with these people as equals, sharing dreams and disappointments. "So have you two set a wedding date yet?" Lisa asked, nodding towards Zariah's engagement ring, a simple diamond she'd worn for 5 years. Caleb and Zariah exchanged a smile. "Actually," Caleb said, "we were thinking next spring. Small ceremony, close friends and family." "About time," Marcus teased. "You've been engaged longer than I've known my kids." "We needed to figure some things out first," Zariah explained. "Make sure we were on the same page about our future." "And are you?" Jessica asked. Zariah looked at Caleb, her heart full. "We are now." After brunch, they said their goodbyes. Hugs were exchanged. Promises to keep in touch were made. Some would be kept, others forgotten in the rush of daily life. But something had shifted during this reunion. Perceptions changed. Old wounds began to heal. As they waited for the valet to bring their car, Melissa Chen approached them one last time. "I just wanted to thank you both," she said. "Especially you, Zariah. Your performances made this reunion special." "I'm glad I could help," Zariah said. "And I'm sorry for what I said, about you not technically being an alumna. That was thoughtless of me." "It's okay," Zariah assured her. "It's true, after all. I never graduated from Whitestone." "Maybe not," Melissa said, "but you've certainly taught us all something this weekend." As Melissa walked away, Caleb put his arm around Zariah's shoulders. "Ready to go home?" Zariah nodded, leaning into his embrace. More than ready. The drive back to their apartment was quiet, both of them processing the events of the reunion. So much had happened in just 24 hours. So much had changed. And yet, in the ways that mattered most, everything had simply returned to what it was always meant to be. I was thinking, Caleb said as they neared home, about what you said last night. About Columbia. What about it? I think you should call them. See if the fellowship is still available or if there's something similar coming up. Zariah looked at him. Are you sure? It would mean 6 months apart. Not necessarily, Caleb said. I'll be on summer break when it starts. I could come up for a few weeks, maybe longer. And there are weekends, holidays, we'd make it work. What about your PhD applications? I can work on those from anywhere. The point is, I don't want you giving up opportunities because you're worried about us. We're solid, Zariah. A little distance won't change that. Zariah reached across the console and took his hand. I love you, you know that? I had a pretty good idea, Caleb said with a smile. But it's nice to hear. 1 year later, the small chapel was filled with flowers. Not expensive arrangements from a high-end florist, but wildflowers picked that morning from the meadow behind Zariah's grandmother's house. Sunshine streamed through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns on the wooden pews. In the front row sat Zariah's grandmother, her face shining with pride. Beside her were Caleb's parents, who had finally, after 11 years, embraced their son's choice of partner. Behind them were friends from both their worlds, Caleb's colleagues from Westlake High, Zariah's fellow poets and artists, Marcus and Lisa, who had flown in from Chicago. And, surprisingly, Jessica Winters, who had made good on her promise to stay in touch. After the reunion, she had become one of the Foundation's most dedicated volunteers, working directly with young girls in Atlanta's underserved communities. At the altar stood Caleb, handsome in a charcoal suit, his eyes fixed on the chapel doors. When they opened and Zariah appeared, a collective gasp went through the room. She wore not white but emerald green, a silk dress that flowed like water as she walked down the aisle. Her braids were adorned with tiny white flowers, and around her neck was a simple pearl pendant that had belonged to her grandmother. As Zariah reached him, Caleb took her hands in his eyes never leaving her face. You look beautiful, he whispered. So do you, she replied with a smile. The ceremony was simple, but heartfelt. They had written their own vows, promises born of 11 years together, of challenges overcome and growth shared. Zariah, Caleb began, his voice steady and sure. 11 years ago I met a girl who changed my world. Not because she needed saving, but because she showed me what real strength looks like, what real love looks like. He squeezed her hands. I promise to be your partner in all things, to support your dreams as fiercely as you've supported mine, to stand beside you, not in front, not behind, as we build our life together. Tears shimmered in Zariah's eyes as she spoke her vows. Caleb, you saw me when others looked through me. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. But most importantly, you loved me for exactly who I am. She took a deep breath. I promise to be your shelter in every storm, to love you through success and failure, through joy and sorrow, to remember always that we are strongest when we face the world together. As they exchanged rings, simple bands of white gold, the chapel was silent except for a few sniffles from the guests. By the power vested in me, the minister said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Their kiss was gentle, a promise sealed, a new chapter begun. At the reception, held in the community center where Zariah's foundation ran its programs, people mingled and danced. There was no divide between Caleb's world and Zariah's, only friends celebrating love that had stood the test of time. Marcus tapped his glass for the toast. To Caleb and Zariah, he said, raising his champagne, who taught us all what it means to grow together, even when growing apart would have been easier. Everyone raised their glasses. To Caleb and Zariah. Later, as they swayed on the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife, Caleb pulled Zariah close. Happy? He asked. More than I ever thought possible, she replied. Over Caleb's shoulder, Zariah could see the teenagers from her poetry program watching them with starry eyes. Young girls who had found their voices through her foundation. Young boys learning that real strength came from vulnerability, not power. These were the things that mattered, not status or money or the approval of people like Richard Pembroke, but the lives they touched, the difference they made, the love they shared. You know, Caleb said, bringing her attention back to him, I never told you how proud I was of you at the reunion. The way you handled everything, Tyler, Jessica, all of it. You were amazing. We both were, Zariah said. We found our way back to each other. We never really lost each other, Caleb corrected. We just forgot for a little while what made us strong. The music changed, and others joined them on the dance floor. Zariah's grandmother dancing with one of Caleb's students. Marcus twirling Lisa in an elaborate spin, Jessica laughing as she taught one of the Foundation kids a silly dance move. "By the way," Zariah said casually, "I got some news yesterday." "Oh, that book deal I was hoping for. The publisher called. They want a collection of my spoken word pieces, plus some new material about our story." Caleb's face lit up. "Zariah, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I wanted to wait until today." That felt right somehow, starting this new chapter in every sense. "I'm so proud of you," Caleb said, kissing her softly. Dr. Brooks Rivers. The Columbia Fellowship had indeed been available, and Zariah had completed it with distinction. The experience had led to guest lecturer positions at universities across the country, and eventually to a PhD of her own in creative writing and performance studies. Meanwhile, Caleb had been accepted to the Education Doctoral Program at Emory. His dissertation on innovative history curriculum for underserved schools was already changing how history was taught in Atlanta's public school system. "Speaking of new chapters," Zariah said, a mysterious smile playing on her lips, "I have one more piece of news." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "More good news?" "The best," Zariah confirmed. "But it's a secret for now, just between us." She stood on tiptoe to whisper in his ear. As she spoke, Caleb's eyes widened, then filled with tears of joy. He picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing. Across the room, Marcus caught the display and nudged Lisa. $10 says they're having a baby." Lisa smiled, watching their friend's obvious happiness. "No bet. Some things are just meant to be." As the evening wound down, Caleb and Zariah slipped outside for a moment alone. The stars were just becoming visible in the twilight sky, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of honeysuckle from the nearby woods. "Thank you," Caleb said suddenly. "For what?" "For walking into that ballroom like thunder last year, for shaking me out of my complacency, for making me face what I was really afraid of." Zariah touched his face gently. "And what was that?" "That I wasn't extraordinary enough for you," Caleb admitted. "That as your star rose, you'd realize you didn't need me anymore." "Oh, Caleb," Zariah said softly, "I will always need you. Not because you save me or protect me, but because you love me. The real me. And that's the most extraordinary thing anyone has ever done." Inside, their friends and family were dancing, celebrating, sharing stories, their past, present, and future, all wrapped up in this one perfect day. "Ready to go back in?" Caleb asked. Zariah nodded, taking his hand. "I'm ready for everything, as long as we're together." Hand in hand, they returned to the celebration, to the life they had built and would continue building. One day, one challenge, one triumph at a time. Equal partners, best friends, soulmates. Their journey hadn't been easy. There had been storms along the way, some that nearly tore them apart, but they had weathered them all, finding shelter in each other when the wind blew hardest. And now, with a baby on the way and their careers flourishing, they faced the future unafraid. Whatever came next, joy or sorrow, success or setback, they would face it together, just as they always had, just as they always would. 3 years later, the auditorium at Whitestone University was packed for the annual Arts and Education benefit. On stage, Zariah Brooks Rivers stood at the microphone, her presence commanding, her voice strong and clear. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she said. "The funds raised here will help bring arts education to schools across Atlanta, giving children the chance to find their voices, just as I found mine." In the front row sat Caleb, their 2-year-old daughter Maya on his lap. His PhD was complete now, and he divided his time between teaching and consulting on educational policy at the state level. Beside him was Zariah's grandmother, now in her 80s, but still sharp as ever. "I'd like to close with a piece that's very special to me," Zariah continued. "It's called She Walked In Like Thunder, and it's about finding your power in the moments when you feel most powerless." As she began to perform, Caleb watched with pride. The shy cleaning girl that his classmates had once dismissed was now a celebrated poet, author, and educator. Her foundation had expanded to 5 cities, bringing arts programs to thousands of underprivileged children. But more than her professional success, Caleb was proud of the woman she was, strong, compassionate, authentic. The woman who had taught him what real success looked like, the woman who had become his wife, the mother of his child, his partner in all things. When Zariah finished her performance, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Maya clapped her tiny hands, beaming up at her mother on stage. "Mama!" she called out, her voice carrying in a moment of perfect silence. Laughter rippled through the crowd, and Zoraya's face softened with love. "Yes, baby," she said into the microphone. "Mama's coming." She thanked the audience once more, then made her way off stage to join her family. As she scooped Maya into her arms and leaned against Caleb, she felt a contentment so deep it brought tears to her eyes. "You were amazing," Caleb whispered, kissing her cheek. "We're amazing," Zoraya corrected, looking from him to their daughter. "All of us, together." Outside the auditorium, the Atlanta sky was bright with stars, the same stars that had witnessed their journey from its uncertain beginning to this moment of harmony and purpose. The same stars that would watch over them in all the days to come, days that would bring new challenges, new joys, new growth, days that they would face as they had faced everything else, side by side, hand in hand, hearts beating in time, thunder and shelter, storm and calm, two souls bound by a love that had stood the test of time and would stand for all time to come. The end.